Tuesday concepts. So good morning, guys. Good morning, everyone. So let's have some quick assessment before starting the today's session. Okay. So what are the prerequisites for doing performance testing? I want from Kavya. Kavya, you are on mute if you are speaking. Sweta?
Sweta ji or
Yeah. Okay, we have how many Svetas here? We have no, only one Sweta is there. Only you are there, Sweta.
okay. So basically we need a stable build with no major functional defects. That is the main prerequisites. And
Okay.
before going for functional testing, performance tester should have a complete knowledge on the application. That is also a main thing. And the
Okay.
performance testing environment should be equal or similar to the production environment. Similar in the sense the load or the servers and the architecture should be similar.
Correct.
And the performance testing environment should be isolated. Isolated means no other testing environment or no other testing team performs testing in the performance testing environment.
Perfect. Yeah. So Yamuna, can you please repeat? Like, can you please tell what are the prerequisites? The same question for you, Yamuna.
Yeah, hi sir. The performance testing, before we start performance testing, the functional testing needs to be completed, and then it should be isolated, wherein the different testing teams like developers or testers, any of the teams shouldn't do any kind of testing. And the other one is they should have a complete knowledge on the application before they start testing.
Okay. Any other one more important one? Performance testing should be, environment should be.
Yeah,
Identical.
different. Yeah, identical to production. So it should be same
Identical
as
to production. Yes.
yes.
So it should be an exact replica of production. Then only we will get accurate results.
Yes, sir.
Right. And we also discussed what is the importance of performance testing yesterday. Shall we move to the next concept or any queries over here?
Yeah, we can move to next concept.
We can move.
We also discussed waterfall model, right? Yesterday I explained waterfall model. What is waterfall model? What are the advantages and disadvantages of waterfall model? Right. Now let's see like different types of application architectures. In this application, I want to cover 2-tier versus 3-tier architecture. And what is, first of all, what is meant by application architecture, right? And 2-tier versus 3-tier architecture and typical 3-tier architecture of an application. Clear?
Yep.
Yeah. So what is my first? Let's understand what is meant by application architecture. Right? So architecture means very important in interview question, guys. So in interviews they will ask, like, can you explain your application current project architecture of current project application architecture, right? Or they will ask you, explain. Can you explain the architecture of your application? Right. So architecture means nothing but it is a pictorial representation of an application's components, software, and connections. It is a pictorial representation of an application's components. Right. So it is a pictorial representation of an application's components. When I say components, servers, etc., software and connections. Right. So application architecture diagram helps us to understand how these applications interact with each other to meet the business or user requirements. So how will be the communication happening between each of the components? So that is the application architecture diagram helps us to understand that how these servers or components interact with each other, or how different servers interact with each other to meet the business or user requirements. Now, what is meant by a server here? So when I say application components, right? So in bracket, I mentioned as servers. What is a server? This is another important interview question. So you may expect like this in the first 5 questions. So what do you mean by a server, right? So server is nothing but it is a software or a computer program or hardware, right? Server is nothing but a software or computer program or hardware which understands your request. When I say your request, what is meant by request here? Suppose you type gmail.com. So you are sending a HTTP request to the Gmail server, right? So or you type Amazon.in. So you are sending a request to Amazon server. So this is HTTP request to or HTTPS request to Amazon.in. HTTP or HTTPS, right? So how can we identify a HTTP request and a HTTPS request? Simple case. So you see a padlock symbol here, right?
You can start with URL. URL.
Right. Yeah. So if you see the URL, you can identify that. Here you see HTTPS, right? Even though you don't see the URL, see here. So if you see this padlock symbol, that means it is a HTTPS request. Means it is a secured application. It's a secured application. Here, guys. Here you see in Gmail also URL also you can see that padlock symbol. So when you send, so this is what a request means. Understand your request means. This is what a request means. So your Gmail server or Amazon server, they receive the understand your request and they process your request and sends back the response. Right? So server is server can be a software or a hardware. Right? So in this example, observe here. So it can be a physical machine also. When I say server, it can be a physical machine also. Or on one machine, there can be multiple servers. Web server, app server can be on same machine. Or web app and DB server can be also on the same machine. Here, guys. You will understand that, going forward. So we will install MySQL and application server Tomcat also on your laptop. I'll make everyone install this MySQL database server and Tomcat on your laptop. Then you'll get a clear clarity, right? So for now, remember that it is a server means it is a software or a computer program or hardware which understands your request, processes your request and sends back the response. So few of you have installed the sample application, isn't it? I shared one sample application to few of you. Yes or no, guys? In those who attended the second demo session, I shared the
Yes.
WebTools application and made you install on the WebTools application, right?
Yes.
So let me show you that. So this is WebTools server running on my machine, right? And I'm able to access so I started the server and let me try to access the application. This is the application URL, right? So here WebTools is a software. In this case, in this particular case, WebTools is a software running on my machine. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right? And hardware is also termed as a server, right? Hardware is also termed as a server. So you'll get more. So basically, what is the takeaway from this slide? What is meant by application architecture, right? So that would be the question, or that is the concept that we are discussing. Architecture means nothing but it is a diagrammatic representation or pictorial representation of an application component, software, and connections. Right? I'll show you the next. We'll go to the next slide. Then you'll get more clarity on this. So if you observe here, any web application consists of this kind of architecture. This is a typical architecture of a traditional 3-tier application. Okay, so you can see here. As an end user, we may be using different browsers like IE or Chrome or Firefox or Edge or some other browser, right? So thousands and lakhs of users will be accessing the application, any web application, right? So your request will first go to the web server. First it will go to web server, right? And then it may go to app server and may go to database server. So we'll discuss which request will go to web server and which request will go to app server and which request will go to database server. But every request goes to the web server. Please remember this, every request from the user will go to first to the web server. And then if required, it goes to app server and then database server. I'll explain that soon, like when it will be required to go for, when your request should go to app server and database server, we will discuss in a while. So for now, understand that architecture diagram means it is nothing but a diagrammatic or pictorial representation of the components. So what are the different components of this application here? You have 3 web servers, load balancer. Here there is one load balancer here, and there is one load balancer here, right? There are 3 load balancers in that way, right? There is one more load balancer here, and there is one more load balancer here. And you have 4 app servers, right? 4 application servers, right? And 3 database servers or 3 database instances, right? So we can call that as instance. Web server in 3, we have 3 web server instances. That means nothing but 3 servers, 3 web servers, and 4 application servers and 3 database servers. So this is the architecture diagram, right? So very important interview question. So they'll ask you to, in interviews, they may ask you to draw the architecture diagram, your application architecture diagram. So you should know what is the web server in your project, what is the application server, what is the database server that your application uses, right? Are we clear so far on this?
Yes, Pawan.
Yeah. Now let's move on to the next one. So now the next concept I want to explain is 2-tier versus 3-tier architecture, right? So I'll give some examples for this. So first, let me explain 2-tier architecture. This application is also called as a thick client application, and this is called as a thin client application. Let me bring up your notes. I'll share this Word document also with everyone.
Okay.
Thick client and thin client, right? Let's understand what is meant by thick client and thin client. So thick client consists of 2-tier architecture. Three-tier or N-tier architecture. Anything above 3-tier, that is called as N-tier. Okay. So desktop applications fall under this thick client architecture. Desktop applications. And all browser-based applications fall under this thin client architecture. Thin client are called as thin client applications. Browser-based applications or web applications. Okay. So let me explain why this is called as thick client and why these are called as thin client applications. Okay. So every one of you using Zoom meeting to join this meeting, right? This session, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So did you install Zoom meeting on your machine or you joined from a browser?
I have installed,
We
sir.
install the Zoom.
We need to install.
Install, sir.
Most of you should have installed Zoom meeting on your machine, right? So you are installing a Zoom client. You installed a Zoom client on your machine, right? You installed a Zoom client on your machine. So so you are installing the client on your machine, and this is called as thick client. That is called as thick client, right? And that client will communicate with the Zoom server, and that's how you are able to join the meeting, right? So coming back this, suppose on the contrary, on the other side, You can join the Zoom meeting by going to this URL, zoom.us. You can type zoom.us and you can join a meeting from here, isn't it? You can enter the meeting ID here, isn't it? And you can join, you can click on this join, right? So basically, if you join this way, you are using a browser. You did not install, you need not install Zoom client on your machine, and you can join from a browser. Clear, guys? However, there are some limitations here. So I can't take control of your machine. If you join from a browser, I can't take control of your machine. So there are some limitations, certain limitations, right? So, but if you are using a browser-based application, this falls under 3-tier architecture, or that is also called as thin client. So why it is called as thin client means, here in this case, in case of desktop application, you are installing the client on your machine, so it occupies more CPU and more memory and disk space on your machine. That's why it is called as thin client application. And here, in this case, you did not install anything for your Zoom meeting, right? Generally, you have some browser which can be used for multiple applications, and you are using the same browser, right? So it requires like this browser requires less CPU and memory than installing the Zoom client on your machine. Clear, guys? And
Yes,
if you
it's
remember,
clear.
Yes, Krishna.
some example also. So if you are using, if you want to do some fund transfer, right? Or if you want to do some payment and all. So as an end user, we use browser. We go to the browser and use net banking application, right? So however, if you consider a bank employee, right? So if you go to bank to deposit some cash or withdraw some cash, right? So the cashier or the bank employee will not be using net banking like us. Yes or no? They will not use net banking and they will not use a browser like us. Instead of that, they will use some software which is installed on their machine, right? So which will communicate with their application server directly, database server directly. Clear, guys? So they are using a thick client application, and as an end user, we are using a thin client application. Clear, guys? We are using a thin client. And this thin client, in this 3-tier architecture, we can be using any browser like IE or Chrome or Firefox, and it will be communicating with your web server, application server, and database server. An application server can be IAS or Apache or Nginx. We will discuss this. Nginx is a web server actually. So in this diagram, it is mentioned as app server under application server. We will discuss that in detail. What is a web server? What is an application server? We will discuss that in detail in the next slide. So I hope everyone is able to differentiate between a thick client application and a thin client application, right? So thick client means desktop application. If you install something on your machine, that is called as a thick client. If you are using any application from a browser, that is called as a thin client. Is it clear, guys?
Okay, sir.
Everyone, any queries here?
No, sir.
Now let's move on to the next slide then, right? So let's understand the 3-tier architecture, right? Or how does a web application, how do we access a web application, and what is a web server, app server, and database server, right? So any application, whether it is a net banking application or a travel application, right? So we can access from a browser like IE or Chrome or Firefox. And as soon as you send a request, you type gmail.com or you type hdfcbank.com or iccibank.com, right? Your request will first go to a web server, something called web server, via load balancer, through a load balancer. Okay, so we'll discuss this load balancer part later on. First, let's understand what is the purpose of web server, application server, and database server, right? So if you observe here, web server layer, this is called as presentation tier. TIER, here, it should be pronounced as tier. So I'm sending a request to Gmail, right? By typing gmail.com. Your request will first go to the web server, right? And this is the response that you got from the web server, right? Now suppose if Clear, guys? So every user, if you start, from a private browser, every user will get the same page, isn't it? If you start from a private browser, right? So did I explain you what is the difference between a normal browser and private browser?
Private browser has no history and cookies. It's a secured purpose.
Right. So this is a normal browser, right? So here you can see, suppose I type Gmail here, right? So why I'm using, let me explain why I'm using private browser here. Suppose I type gmail.com, right? So it will log into my previous, my Gmail account directly.
Yes,
That's why I'm using a private browser. So in private browser, your browsing history and cookies and whatever information you entered in the forms will not be saved. First of all, your browsing history will not be saved. So that's why in a private browser, when you type gmail.com, you will get the actual Gmail page, the login page. And here you click on sign in and then enter your email address, right? Understood, guys, why I'm using private browser?
Yes, sir.
To start from the beginning, I'm using private browser. So basically, this private browser are, in terms of Chrome terminology, it is called as incognito browser, incognito mode, right? On the top right, you see this incognito symbol, isn't it? So let me show you in Firefox, okay? So this is normal browser of Firefox. And now let me show you like how does a private browser looks like and how to launch a private browser of Firefox. Just right click on the Firefox icon and click on this new private window and you will see this icon on the top right. So this indicates that this is a private browser of Firefox, right? And when you are using a private browser, Firefox, the browser clears your search and browsing history when you close all the private windows, right? And why do we use this private browser? Suppose you are using a shared machine, right? If you are sharing your laptop or desktop between your friends and your family members, right? So if you are using some, if you don't want others to see your browsing history, you can use this private browser. However, please remember that your whatever websites you visit, right? Or if you are using your office laptop, so whatever your activity will be still visible to your employer or school. If you are using a college or school, or employers or your office laptop, right? Or if you are using a college lab, machine provided by your college, right? So your activity will still be visible to them. Or your internet service provider, your ISP, internet service provider also will know your activity, your browsing activity. Yes. Okay. So here you can clearly see what is the difference between a normal browser and a private browser. Anyways, so coming back to this. So when you send a request to gmail.com from a private browser, so every user will get this page, the same page, right? You can try it from a private browser, guys, everyone. Please open Chrome and or if you have Chrome icon on your taskbar, just right click and select this new incognito window. You see here two options, new window, new incognito window. If you use this one, it will launch normal browser, and if you use this option, obviously it will launch a private browser. Can you please do that, everyone, please? Right now, which server has sent this response to you? Every request to the web application will first go to the web server, and web server has sent this response, right? I'll discuss that. I'll show that with examples. Okay, when we install some application on your machine, then we'll revisit this. And again, when you click on this sign in, right? If you don't have an account, you will create an account. Otherwise, if you already have an account, you'll click on sign in. So I already have an account. I clicked on sign in, and now so this page, the previous page and this page doesn't change every time, isn't it? So it is a static page. It's a static page, means every user will say the same similar kind of page. and also the content doesn't change. The content of this page doesn't change, right? So now if I enter some email ID, my email ID, right? And if I click on next, it will prompt for a password, right? So, and of course, if I log into my account, it will show my inbox. If you log into your account, it will show in your inbox. Gmail will show your inbox, right? So once you log in, the content changes, right? If I log in, it will show my inbox. If you log in with your account, Gmail account, it will show your inbox, right? So from there onwards, the content is dynamic. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Kishore, can you repeat once again?
Static content and the time. Sorry. So let's understand what is static content and what is dynamic content, and what is web server and what is application server. What is the role of each, right? So if you observe here, web server is called as presentation tier, and whatever content you see in the browser will be presented by this web server only. Whatever we see in the browser, whatever response we get from the server, that is served by a web server only. So that's why this is called as presentation tier. First thing you have to know, everyone should know, right? Now, let me explain when does this application server and database server come into picture with some examples. Suppose you type gmail.com, right? So the previous page, so you remember this page will be served by the web server itself, right? And when you click on sign in, this page also will be served by the web server itself. Then you enter password and you log into your mailbox, right? So there onwards, like the content is dynamic, isn't it? Once you log into your account, the content will be dynamic, yes or no?
Yes.
Let me take one more example. Suppose you type irctc.co.in. So this is static content, means the content of the page doesn't change every time, doesn't change frequently, yes or no? Right? However, if you want to search for some trains, okay, let me search for some availability between two cities, and you click on search, right? Once you click on search, right? So this content changes, right, every time. The
Yes.
availability all changes every
Yes.
time, right? So this is dynamic content, right? So the previous page will be served by the web server directly. Any static content will be served by the web server directly, right? Here I mentioned it here, served by web server directly, and web server is called as presentation tier. Here you can see web server is called as presentation tier. However, when you search for trains between two stations, two cities, right? So suppose you search for trains between Hyderabad to Bangalore, right? So this content changes every time, yes or no? This data changes every time, isn't it? So this is dynamic content. See, this availability and waiting list and all changes every time, right? So this is dynamic content. So this content can't be served by web server directly. In this case, what happens is your request will first go to the application server whenever you request for a dynamic content, right? Your request will go to the web application server, and if required, it will go to the database server.
You mean to say?
First request goes to web server.
First your request go to web server, and if your request is for a static content, it will be served directly. Understood, guys? And suppose you search for trains between two stations, or you do some search, right? So if you go to Amazon, right, and so this is a static content. This content doesn't change every time. So we'll get this response from the web server. However, if you search for some product here, right, so you get some search results, right? So here your request will go to app server. When you search, your request will go to the application server, and then all these details will be stored in the database server. That request will go to the database server also. So that is where your application server and database server comes into picture, right? And what does this, let me explain what is the role of this application server and database server, right? So let's take the first case, like, let's take this IRCTC example. When you search for some price between Hyderabad to Bangalore, right? So then there will be some code written in the application server, running in the application server, some code, some query like this. Right? So there will be some query which will be running in the application server. There will be some code in the application server which will be having this query, some query like this, right? So what happens now is your application server interacts with the, it will establish a connection with the database server, and it will run this query, get the data from the table, from the database tables, right? All this data will be stored in the database. Let me go to IRCTC example, right? So the tickets availability and trains details and ticket cost, all these details will be stored in the database, right? So application server will be having some code to run this query, to run that query, whatever I have shown here. Yeah, here it is. Understood, guys? So when, if you, for the home page and all, for home page or launch page, it will be served by web server directly. However, as it is a static content, there will not be change. No, there will not be any change in the content frequently. So the such type of pages will be served by web server. Whenever there is some dynamic content involved, right? So your request will go to the application server. Application server runs some code on the code, and it will connect to the database and get the some data, right? Your request will go to database server, and some query will be run on the database, and database server returns some data and to the application server, and application server sends the response to the web server, and web server sends the response finally to the browser. So that's why you see here two side brackets, you see two side arrows, right?
Yes, sir. Request and then the response.
Correct. So this is how your request flows back and forth from your browser to web server and then application server. If required, it goes to application server and database server, and then from database server, you'll get response to application server. Application server sends that response to web server. Web server sends that response to the browser. Right? So,
Yes.
so if you observe here, application under application server, it's mentioned as application tier or logic tier, right? So what logic we are running here, right? So it runs this query basically. All your application logic will be running under running in application server, right? So to run that query or to run that code or to get the results from the database, your application server will establish a connection with the database and run that query, and then gets response from the database server, and that response will be sent to web server, and web server sends the response to the browser finally. So that's why whatever response you see in the browser, that comes always from web server. That's why it is called as presentation tier. Clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
This is a traditional three-tier architecture. This is a traditional architecture of a three-tier application, right? If it is clear, we'll move on to the next slide. So if your request is for a static content, there is, your application server, there is no need of this app server and database server. All the pages, static pages will be with the will be available with the web server itself. It will send that response directly to the browser.
So it
Your
means
request
like
is for static content.
if I am opening any ICICI browser, it is the static content where it displays login name and password. If I enter my username and password and logs in into the application, it displays my account balance and everything. That is the dynamic content.
Correct. So this is a static content, right? So everyone
Yes.
sees this page only. This page is fixed. This page is standard for every user, right? So once you log into your account, however, it will fetch your account details. So that is dynamic content that their application server and database server will be involved over there.
Yes. Based on the input data, it goes to database and fetch the data.
Right.
In two-tier architecture, you don't have database server, right? App server.
Yeah, we'll discuss that. We'll discuss that later. Are we good here, guys? Web server, app server, and database server.
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
And what is the role?
Okay, sir.
So this is a traditional three-tier architecture. Now, in the next slide, I explained N-tier architecture, right? So new N-tier architecture, and also in this diagram represents, what is presentation server made up of. Means how this presentation server will be, this layer will be developed, or how this application layer will be developed, or logic tier. This logic tier will be developed, and what all a database tier may contain. Right? So here we have a inside view into the architecture. And one more thing is, nowadays we have web browsers. In addition to web browser, you have mobile web browsers, right? Most of the users are accessing the applications from mobiles, and the layout completely differs, right? So if it is a web browser, the layout will be like this. If it is a mobile browser, layout will be something like this, isn't it? Mobile browsers will have a different layout, right? So
Yes.
After these mobile smartphones came into picture, we have mobile web browsers added. One more layer got added here, right? Which is mobile web browser layer. And one more thing is, so of course this falls under this category, this part, browser part, right? And here this diagram shows, right, what is presentation server made up of? What is presentation tier made up of? Right? So typically this presentation layer will be made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So we have to understand what is HTML, what is CSS, and JavaScript, right? First, and then so let's understand what is this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript first, right? So as I said, this presentation tier will be made up of these components called HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now let me explain what is the purpose of each. We'll take some example. I'm launching it something called developer tools. Okay, so and type apple.com. Go to any website. Right? So go to any website like IRCTC, Amazon, or Flipkart, or go to any website. And what does this developer tool show you is, it will show you what are the components of the page. What are the different components of the page? Components means what are the parts of the page. And you see here, observe here, apple.com. This is the main request that I have sent to the browser, right? And internally, all these some sub requests will go to the server for this CSS. Observe here, there are some CSS files and JavaScript files. .js means JavaScript files, right? And you'll have some images as well, isn't it? SVG is an image format, PNG, right? JPG, these are all image formats, isn't it? So any web page will be built up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript typically, right? So let me take one more example. So you can either use developer tools, or you can right click over here. You can right click over here and click on view page source. So here you can see HTML. So this page is made up of HTML, right? And you see some CSS files over here, .css, and some JavaScript files as well. We'll be having some .js files as well. Here you can see. Here guys. So this is this page is built up using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Any web application you can type, right? Here you can see some HTML code and CSS. Let me search for some CSS. Here you can see there are some CSS files, and also you can see some JavaScript files as well. Let me search for .js. Right? Here you see some service JavaScript files, service worker.js. And let me search for other occurrences. spload.js, right? Payload.js. So you see a lot of JavaScript files over here. Here, guys. Now let's understand what is the purpose of each, right? So HTML will be used to define the elements of the page. For example, this is a text box element, right? So this will be developed using some HTML code. Here, guys. Or this is called as page title. On the top left, you see Gmail, right? So this is called as page title. Okay. So that page title will be defined in HTML language, right? So I'll show it with a sample application so that you can, like it will be easy to understand. I'll take this WebTools application only and let me open it. Yeah. So I already opened this URL application URL. And if you right click here anywhere and click on view page source, right? You see here. So because why I choose this example is you'll have very less lines of code so that it will be easy to interpret, right? You see here there is some HTML code here, and see here title. This whatever you give here in the place of title, that will be visible over here. This is what you are seeing here as page title. Please remember this. You have to remember this. This is called as page title. Okay. Suppose if I type here, I can change the title here. Okay. So let me go to that. Just to show you, I want to paste that, change the page title. That's it. So this is the page that we are accessing, index.html, right? So let me show you the URL once. See here, WebTools index.html, right? So this is the page that we are seeing in the browser now. Now this is where the code is written, right? So it was written. It's an HTML document, or both HTML and HTML document are same. Okay, and if you open that code, right? If you open that page, you can see here there is some HTML content, and there is some title defined here as WebTools. Now what I will do is I'll simply change that to I'm just changing the page title just to show you that this is what you are seeing, right? Or this is how this page is developed. Index.html page is written, right? Now if you go to the browser and refresh, let's refresh. Now you see the page title here, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So any page, any web page it will be built using this HTML code, right? Using this HTML code, right? So you see, hold on 1 second. You see some text box over here. These are called as text box, right? This is a button, right? And you see some links over here. So all this will be developed using HTML code, right? And next, what is the is it clear what is the purpose of HTML here in this out of these three?
Creating
the page content will be developed using HTML. And what is let's understand what is the purpose of CSS. CSS defines the layout of the page. It defines layout of the page. Means what is meant by layout? If you take this example, so on the top right, there is a button in blue color. Here there is a button for sign in, right? You see 3 buttons over here on the top right. First button, second button, third, right? And if you observe, like this create an account button is in blue color, right? So that will be written in HTML. And this layout, when I say layout, this button should be displayed on the top right, right? And Gmail icon should be displayed on the left side. So this layout will be defined in CSS file. Understood, guys? Layout means which button should be displayed, where the logo should be displayed, where the button should be displayed, right? The arrangement of the components that is defined in CSS files. Clear, guys? I have one more slide on this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Let me quickly show you that. Here you go, right? So CSS stands for cascading style sheets, first of all. Sorry, I missed to explain that. So CSS stands for cascading style sheets. Style sheets means they describe how the HTML elements are to be displayed. When I say HTML elements, what is meant by HTML element? A drop down, or a text box,
Content based.
or a radio button, or a checkbox. These are all different HTML elements, right? So CSS describes how the HTML elements are to be displayed, or CSS defines layout of the page, the arrangement of the page. Is it clear what is the purpose of CSS? That's it. You need not know any code here, or you need not know any internals, okay, for now. Just remember like what is the purpose, or understand what is the purpose of HTML, what is CSS, what is JavaScript. Okay. And this, is it clear? Shall we move to the next one?
Okay, sir.
The next component is JavaScript, right? The presentation layer will be made up of JavaScript also, and JavaScript is the programming language for the web, and it can update and change both. Just ignore this. I'll tell you what is the main purpose of JavaScript. JavaScript will be used for client-side validations. So let me explain this. What is meant by client-side validation? This is important to understand. All right. So let me go to. I'll take one more example, bigbasket.com. Oh. Okay. So let me explain what is that client-side validation means, or what is the purpose of JavaScript. Okay, I'm just giving an example, guys. Need not be exactly the same, right? So suppose once you access this page, you are supposed to enter an email address or phone number, isn't it? You are supposed to enter an email address or phone number, right? Suppose you enter a valid email address like this, right? And if you click on next, it will prompt for password, isn't it? Or else suppose if you enter phone number also, it will take you to the next screen. However, if you enter some junk characters like this, right? Or some special characters like this, right? And if you click on next, right? So it will display an error message, right? Now, how does Gmail know that this is an invalid email address? Will this username, whatever you entered, will this go to the Gmail server or not? Right? So this need not go to the Gmail server. Means when you enter some invalid characters like this, it need not go to the Gmail server, right? So, and how does it know is there will be some JavaScript file which will be validating this on the client side, on the browser itself. This will be validated. This will be validated on the browser itself, right? So all those client side validations will be done by the JavaScript. Yes, is it clear or no?
Yes, sir.
You understand what is meant by client side validation? See, client means we are so we are using browser as a client. We are using Chrome as a client here. As an end user, I am using Chrome browser as a client. So when you enter some characters like this, and if you want to validate, right? So this data need not go to the Gmail server. So it can be, this validation can happen on the client side itself. Suppose it is you entered some special characters, all special characters, right? So instead of sending that request to the server, Gmail server, it can be validated. It can be validated at the client side itself, and where that code will be written is in the form of a JavaScript file. when you access this page, some JavaScript files will be loaded. And those JavaScript files, one of those JavaScript files contain the code for that to validate this, right? So this JavaScript will be used for client-side validations. This is important to understand or remember. Here, guys. Is it clear or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right? So CSS will be used to define the layout of the page. HTML will be used to develop the content of the page. Content, when I say content, your text, HTML text, page titles, text box, drop downs, right? All these will be developed using HTML language, and CSS defines the layout, means arrangement of those HTML elements, how the HTML element should be displayed, right? That will be defined in the CSS files, and JavaScript will be used to do client-side validations mostly. So this is how a presentation layer will be made up of, right? Yes, these are basics of web application. So you have to know, basically, everyone should know and remember what is CSS file, what is JavaScript, because whatever application you take, so you can right click and if you see the source, view page source, you will see this HTML, CSS, JavaScript files. You can see here, this is HTML code. You will see some CSS files, right? You see some CSS files. See here. One more. Just now saw one. Yeah, see here, stylesheet.css. So basically, this will be used to define layout of the page, and you will also see some JavaScript files as well. Here you can see floating widget.js. There are a lot of JavaScript files, manifest.js, firebase.js, and all this. So that is the reason I am explaining this. I have to explain. Right now, so and how about this logic tier? So the next tier is logic tier or application tier, right? So this will be developed using any programming language like Java, or .NET, or PHP, or Python, or Rails, right? This logic tier or application tier will be made up of any of these developed using any of these programming languages. And the last tier is persistence tier or database tier. So there are a couple of other databases like MySQL, Microsoft SQL Server, PostgreSQL. So it can contain or Oracle database. So this database tier may be using any of these databases. So this is the insight of this N-tier architecture application. I'll stop it here, guys, for today. So we'll continue tomorrow. So if you have any queries, we can discuss and we can close for today. I missed to explain this load balancer, right? So let me explain what is load balancer. Suppose you have only one web server and only one app server and only one database server. There is no need of this load balancer, obviously, right? No need of this load balancer. So, however, when you have more than one server, more than one instance of web server, or more than one application server instance, right? So then you require a load balancer. So as the name implies, what does this load balancer does? The name itself says load balancer means it will balance the load, simply balance the load. Means what load, what does it balance? When thousands of users are accessing the application, right? So, and when there are more than one web server, app server, the user load has to be distributed equally between all the servers, right?
Yes.
First of all, when there will be more than one web server, suppose your user base is very high. There are thousands and lakhs of users accessing the application. And if one web server is not sufficient to balance to handle the load, then they will add one more web server or one more application server, one more database server. So whenever we have, is it clear so far? If one server configuration or one server is not sufficient, right? So, and one more thing, suppose you have only one web server. For some reason, your one web server failed, one machine failed. Because of some reason, it has failed, right? Now your whole application will not be working, right?
Yes.
If you have only one web server, one app server and one database server, your whole application will not be working, right? So however, when you have more than one web server, what happens is, even though when one server fails, the other server will take the load. That is the advantage of having multiple instances, first thing. And when you have multiple instances at each layer, when you have multiple instances, user load should be distributed equally or balanced between the available servers, right? So that is what this load balancer does. And load balancer is not a hardware component, it's a software component. It's a software component. Okay. And for any application, is it clear so far? I'll come to your question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll come to your question on firewall. So is this understood? What is the purpose of load balancer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So the job of this load balancer is to balance the load, user load, or to distribute all the requests equally between all the servers. Clear? Now coming to your question on firewall. So every application will be behind a firewall. Any application will be behind a firewall. Means before this load balancer itself, there will be a firewall. What is the purpose of that firewall? So that firewall protects the application from any hacking attempts. Right?
Yes.
Right? That is the purpose of firewall, and that will be before this application.
Yes.
Any other queries?
And sir, in that persistent tier, if we replace with the cloud,
Any layer can be replaced, so your application will be, okay, let me explain this. There are two terms here. So any application, if your servers and all are located on, okay, I'll take one example for this. Let's take State Bank of India, net banking application. State Bank of India, net banking application. So onlinesbi.com, right? That is a URL. So, and suppose so previously, before this cloud came into picture, cloud concept came into picture. So previously, all the web server, app server, database server of this net banking application or this, State Bank of India, they used to be there in Mumbai, where State Bank SBI has its headquarters, right? So all the servers used to be there in some data center in Mumbai, right? So this is called as when your servers are in your geographic location, right? Or in the headquarters of the company, right? Right? Those are called as on-premise applications. On-premise, right? On-premise. So after this cloud concept came into picture, what happens here is, so instead of using their own servers, right? SBI may be using some data center provided by cloud service providers. Cloud service providers. Major cloud service providers are Amazon, right? Amazon, and their service is called as AWS, right? And GCP, right? And there are couple of other, Azure, Microsoft Azure. Right?
IBM
so
Cloud.
these are, what is that?
IBM Cloud.
IBM Cloud and all this. So these are the major service providers, major cloud service providers. Now what happens is, instead of maintaining their own servers, State Bank of India, what it can do is, they can use these cloud service providers, and they can move their application. Or so what is the disadvantage of this one is, we'll discuss that case. So as there are some non-computer skills, they may get confused. Okay, we'll discuss all these like once we complete the scripting and all this. So however, I want to explain this on-premise and cloud-based application. Nowadays we have two types of applications: on-premise and cloud-hosted or cloud-based applications. Again, in cloud, we have something called public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, and all this. right? We'll discuss that later, guys. For now, remember that understand what is meant by on-premise and what is meant by a cloud application. I hope this is clear. So instead of using servers, our own servers, if you are using some cloud service providers, that is called as your application is hosted in a cloud. You understood the difference between on-premise and cloud?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I'm pausing recording. I'm stopping for today, guys.